know, too much fun making it, but nonetheless, I hope it was just over the top enough for you guys to enjoy. And I had so much fun that I figured, why not bring you guys into this process and give you a little bit of insight into how I made the thing. And throughout this process, we're going to be taking a look at the Genome plugin by Two-Notes Audio, which I used for all of the guitars that you heard in this nonsense. So just a brief rundown of what this Genome plugin is before we delve into it. It's essentially their attempt to make an all-in-one virtual guitar rig that includes things like amp simulators, cab simulators, effects pedals, studio processing, and like that. But let's just jump right into this thing. Well, I'll start by just showing you the user interface, and we'll start with the rhythm guitars here and just work our way towards the leads as usual. So here's the user interface, and as you can see, there's a drop-down menu right here with tons and tons of presets. So what I did is I just sifted through these presets till I found one that I thought was a good enough or suitable enough starting point, and I just ran with that. So unsurprisingly, I settled on this nifty 50 instinctively, which, as we know, is just a 5150 modeler. It sounds great. I just added a little drive in front of it, so that's this classic green overdrive pedal. We all know what that's modeling. That's really all it took. There's of course some other processing involved in all of this, but we're just here to take a look at the Genome plugin today, so we're gonna just focus on that. Now that I've shown you the preset that we're working with, let's go ahead and just take a listen to what these rhythm guitars sound like soloed. So yeah, it's just a nice, tight, modern rhythm guitar tone. It wasn't too hard to arrive at this tone from the preset, which is great. I always love when that happens. So if we take a look at the preset again, you'll actually see, I wanted to mention this, so you'll see that there are some other effects in this signal chain. However, I did disable them. These effects just came loaded into the preset that I started with, but as you just heard, I wanted a really tight, crisp rhythm guitar tone, so obviously the delay and reverb were not necessary, so I just went ahead and deactivated that, which brings me to my next point, which is that this is one of my favorite aspects of this plugin in particular, the flexibility that it affords you with shaping your tone and organizing your signal chain. So for example, I could even just use their cab IR, right, and then load in a different amp from another plugin and mix and match different plugins to get exactly the tone that I want. I can use different delays, reverbs, effects, whatever. After this Genome plugin in the DAW signal chain, I can really do whatever I want, which, you know, it's great and it's a disaster at the same time having all of these options, because it could lead to some option paralysis. It can be a bit overwhelming, but if you have a really clear vision, there's pretty much nothing that you can't do with all of the technology at your fingertips. And the Genome plugin is just another one of those incredibly useful tools. So I actually did just that. What I mentioned earlier is I sort of mix and matched plugins to get the exact sound that I wanted. As you can also see, this cab is deactivated, right? So that's what it looks like if it's activated. That's what it looks like if it's deactivated. I went ahead and deactivated that, and then in the DAW, I just loaded up another plugin right after the Genome, and it just happened to be the Mixwave Spirit Box Mike Stringer plugin, and this one also allows you to tamper with the signal chain and activate and deactivate various stages in that. So I went ahead and just deactivated everything here except for the cab, and I'm just using the cab for this particular tone. So going back to the Genome, that's pretty much all there is to these rhythm guitars. Really simple: drive, amp, cab, and then, of course, there's, like I mentioned earlier, some EQing and transient shaping and stuff going on. But that is the core of what you're hearing, is just this: amp, cab, drive. Oh, and just to sort of wrap up the rhythm guitar tones here, I'm sure well, maybe you don't remember, but there were some extra low guitars. If we're making something modern, I guess you can't really not drop tune, like excessively drop tune things anymore. So that's what I did here. Basically what I did was just in the DAW, I just dropped it down an extra octave, treated it a little bit differently EQ wise because of that, but it's still the exact same thing. So if I were to solo the low guitars here, that's what they sound like. Now for the leads. This is where things get a little bit more intricate. What we're gonna do here is I'm just gonna solo this so you can hear what's going on, and then hopefully I can remember what I did. This session's kind of a bit of a cluster, if you will. The production is just like a little outrageous in this, and there were just a lot of rapid decisions that were made, and so I tend to forget what I did. As I do in all of my other videos, we're kind of discovering what I did together. So let's hope I remember. Here we go. Okay, that's super straightforward. That's easy enough for me to remember, at least. So let's just take a look at the amp that I used here, and it looks pretty much the same. I mean, yeah, it is pretty much the same. I think I just took the rhythm guitar tone and then just tried to leadify it a little bit. I think the gain is turned up a little bit here. Maybe that's all I did to it. Maybe I'm lying. Let's double check. Okay, 7.5, yeah. So the gain is turned up, but for the most part, things look pretty similar. So there's some different EQing that occurred in post. You can utilize the EQ here in the Genome plugin itself. If I wanted to, I could just rearrange this in a way where there was EQ happening before this drive. If I wanted to before the amp EQ it, and then I could post EQ it over here as well. It's just easier for me to utilize some other EQ plugins that I'm familiar with, which again is a testament to how great it is to have this flexibility, you know, to be able to enable, disable anything you want in the signal chain. So cool. That lead is really straightforward. It's just a harmony part. I only played one of the harmony parts, so if we listen to that together. And yeah, there's just some different delay plugins that I used on this outside of the Genome, but the Genome plugin does have some great delays and reverbs. I just decided that this one was more suitable for this context, and that's okay. Taking a look at this next lead. This is where it actually gets a little bit more complicated because there's a lot of automation in here. Let's go ahead and solo these. Take a listen to this nonsense. Yep, nonsense was a good call. So as you could hear, there's a lot of different going on to make it sound more texturally interesting, I feel. So you could probably see that I have this neural plugin, the Gojira plugin, and I'm just using this wham pedal, automating it in the DAW, getting some cool position changes to make it sound like it's, you know, doing this sort of like portamento up into the pitch, so it gives it this like bendy, slidey feel. So that's fun. That was a different plugin, but again, I just put it before the actual amp and the signal chain. So getting back to this Genome thing, again, I just have the drive and the amp activated here. Okay, so let's check out this next lead. Man, there's just so much going on in there. It's a little absurd, but it creates very, you know, modern, fresh textures. Yeah, this Genome plugin, let's take a look at what's going on there. I'm really just utilizing that for the amp sim and drive effect. I just think it sounds great. It's a really nice, sharp, bitey tone. It's perfect for this lead. And then there's just a bunch of other stuff happening before and after it. You could just mix and match everything. There's, you know, little altar boy happening on there, some doubling, some delay, a ring mod, all sorts of cool stuff to create this weird sort of modern texture. Oh, and also that reminds me, I forgot about this nice little ambient lead that was recorded here, and I'm remembering there was something cool done to this, a pretty unconventional method, I think. Let's take a look at this. So I'm gonna solo this lead right here, this sort of like ambient layer. Okay, so I'm remembering now what I did here. I actually bounced this lead that was played. It was initially just on this very heavily affected clean amp, bounced that, and then took that wave and ran it through another amp sim, so it had just this extra sort of like fucked up sound, just so that it sounded less like a guitar. I'm really into making guitars not sound like guitars these days, as you can probably tell. It's kind of interesting to me. I'll show you what it sounds like without running it through that second amp sim. So let me just disable that, play it for you. So that's what I had initially, but what was on it was the Genome plugin, their delay and reverb, so that's their delay and reverb that you're hearing. So the mix of the reverb, that knob was turned way up, and I believe I EQ'd out where you could hear that picking frequency just to give it that extra pad sort of effect, and then bounced that, then I ran that through this amp sim, and then it created this final product that you hear right here. And there you have it, a nice little post-rock lead for our Iron Maiden song. Okay, so I think that pretty much wraps up the guitars. Thank you for taking a look at this really weird, messed up session with me. I had so much fun making it, and thank you to Two-Notes for making the Genome plugin and making it so flexible and versatile to allow for people like me to make such absurd materials with it. I really have a lot of fun utilizing all of the modern tech that's at our disposal today. If you have any questions about anything, please drop it in the comments below. Let me know if you found this informative, as always, and hope you liked it. I'll see you guys next time. Bye.